Unexpected paths lead to purpose. Jacinda Ardern's rise wasn't perfectly planned. It was accelerated, unexpected, and full of doubts. Yet it revealed that sometimes we are chosen by the moment before we believe we're ready. When Jacinda Ardern became Prime Minister of New Zealand, it wasn't a moment she had mapped out with precision or long-term ambition. In fact, she had once declared she didn't even want to be leader. But life has a way of tapping you on the shoulder when it's your time, even if you didn't see it coming. There was no grand build-up, no carefully staged rise. It was chaos, it was pressure, it was unexpected, and it was real. She stepped into the role just 7 weeks before the national election. Imagine that, being handed the steering wheel of an entire country with just 49 days to convince a nation you could drive it forward. Most would run, most would say, "I'm not ready." But Jacinda didn't flinch. She leaned in. Not because she had it all figured out, but because sometimes purpose doesn't wait for perfect conditions. Sometimes your calling kicks down the door, not gently knocks. This is what we have to remember. We wait. We stall. We tell ourselves we'll step up when we're ready, when the stars align, when the fear subsides. But what if readiness is a myth? What if being thrown into the fire is how we find the flame inside of us? Jacinda's story shatters the belief that leadership, or any meaningful journey, must be carefully orchestrated. She didn't walk into power with a 5-year plan. She walked in with heart, with clarity, with an openness to figure it out on the go. And that, right there, is the truth. Greatness rarely gives you time to prepare. It gives you a window. It gives you pressure, and in that pressure, you either fold or rise. Amy Purdy once said that our obstacles are not meant to break us, they're meant to shape us. And if anyone lived that message politically, it was Jacinda, because what could have been her excuse became her launchpad. She didn't dwell on how little time she had. She focused on how much truth she could pack into every second. And that's how you lead, that's how you live, not by controlling every twist and turn, but by standing tall the moment life calls your name, even if your voice shakes when you answer. So if you're sitting there, waiting for permission, for the perfect title, for the credentials, for someone to tell you it's your turn, stop. Because it may never feel like the right moment. The path may never be clear. But if you dare to show up anyway, if you say yes, even when you're trembling, you open the door for something bigger than your fear. Her story reminds us that courage isn't the absence of doubt. It's moving forward in its presence. That's what she did. That's what you must do. You're not required to be perfect. Just present. Because the world doesn't always need a flawless leader. Sometimes it just needs someone brave enough to step up when it counts, messy or not. And if Jacinda had waited until she felt ready, the world might never have seen the power she carried. The lesson: don't wait to be ready, answer the call. The moment may not come back. Let me know if you'd like the next expanded key point, F, or a motivational video script version, F. Leading with empathy is not a weakness, it's a superpower. Ardern's leadership was instantly recognized for its compassion, especially in a world craving connection. This proves that kindness can and should coexist with strength. The moment Jacinda Ardern stepped into leadership, something shifted not just in New Zealand, but across the global conversation about what true leadership looks like. She didn't walk in with a fist on the table or a voice that demanded fear. She walked in with empathy, and in doing so, she flipped the script on what power means. People said kindness wasn't strong enough. They said compassion was soft. They warned that empathy would cost her credibility. But guess what? She didn't listen. She led with her heart, with raw humanity, and with an unshakable belief that being kind didn't mean you couldn't also be fierce. She proved that empathy isn't the opposite of strength. It is strength. It is the strength to feel deeply and still stand tall. It is the courage to connect when it's easier to command. It is the choice to listen when others shout. And let's be real, there were people watching, waiting for her to stumble, waiting for her to fail because she didn't fit the mold. A young woman, a new mother, a leader who dared to show emotion, but instead of cracking under that scrutiny, she doubled down on what made her different. She showed up with grace in grief, with composure in crisis, with humility in power. She didn't put on a mask to look tougher. She didn't hide her feelings to seem more professional. She embraced them. She used empathy like armor, not to shield herself, but to protect others, and it worked. It worked because the world was aching for leaders who care, for voices that heal, for decisions rooted in understanding, not ego. She gave people that. She gave them humanity in the face of horror, softness in moments of steel. Think about this. After the Christchurch mosque attacks, it wasn't her policy response alone that made headlines. It was her presence, her silence, her tears, her arms around strangers, her head covered in a hijab out of pure respect. That wasn't politics. That was leadership in its highest form, leadership that sees, feels, connects. And that is what shook the world. Because in that moment, millions of people saw a reflection of the leader they wish they had. Not a ruler, not a boss, but a human. And maybe that's the point. Maybe leadership isn't about being above others. Maybe it's about standing beside them when it's hardest. That is what Jacinda embodied. That is what empathy does. So, hear me now. Don't let the world convince you that softness is weakness. Don't buy into the myth that you have to be cold to be credible. The truth is, your empathy is your edge. Your heart is your leadership tool. Your ability to feel, to care, to lift others through compassion, that is what sets you apart. Don't dilute it. Don't hide it. Amplify it. Because in a world full of noise, your authenticity is the microphone. In a system that often rewards detachment, your connection is rebellion, and if Jacinda could rise to the top without sacrificing her soul, then so can you. Not by hardening, but by holding fast to what makes you human. Let me know if you want the next expanded key point, F, or a speech version for video delivery, F. Age, gender, and critics are just noise at 37, and one of the youngest female leaders in the world, Ardern faced bias and scrutiny. But rather than fight it, she transcended it with quiet courage and undeniable competence. They said she was too young. They said she was too soft. They said being a woman meant she'd never truly hold power without being questioned, critiqued, second-guessed. At just 37 years old, Jacinda Ardern became one of the youngest leaders in the world, and instead of being celebrated, she was dissected. Her clothes, her smile, her pregnancy, her partner, her emotions, every part of her was scrutinized, not because she wasn't capable, but because the world wasn't used to seeing power in that form. But Jacinda didn't fight back with rage. She didn't let the noise drown her clarity. She didn't twist herself into a version more palatable for the skeptics. She stood still, she stood steady, and she let her actions do the talking. Because leadership isn't about how loud you are, it's about how consistent you stay when the world tests your worth. She walked into Parliament and didn't ask for respect. She earned it through decisions, through values, through presence, and yes, there were critics at every turn. But do you know what makes critics powerless? Results, purpose, vision. She didn't respond to every opinion thrown at her. Why should she? She had a nation to lead. A future to build. Time was precious, and she chose to spend her serving, not defending. So if you're ever in a room where they say you're too this or not enough that, remember Jacinda. Remember how she made the impossible feel possible, not by proving herself to doubters, but by proving herself to her mission. Because your identity is not a limitation. It's your starting point. It's your power base. Don't shrink it to fit someone else's version of strong. And let's talk about what it means to lead while carrying layers of expectation, of gender bias, of generational doubt. It means being tested in every room. It means having to explain your choices more than others. but it also means becoming unshakable. Not because you're immune to the weight, but because you've learned to walk with it and still rise. Jacinda didn't erase her femininity. She didn't mask her age. She embraced it. She made history while holding her baby at the United Nations. She made policy while defying every outdated stereotype about what a leader should look like. That was not just a win for her. It was a masterclass in silent rebellion, in owning your identity so fiercely that others are forced to confront their outdated lens. So here's the truth, and hear it like fire in your bones. You are not too young. You are not too female. You are not too emotional, too soft, too anything. You are exactly enough. The world will throw labels. Let them. Your job isn't to wear them. It's to outgrow them, like Jacinda did. Let your voice be calm, but your purpose be roaring. Let your presence challenge every room simply by existing, and let every step you take be a quiet revolution against the mold they tried to fit you in. Let me know if you want the next expanded key point F, or a visual quote graphic version F. Responsibility isn't a burden. It's a torch. When she took office, Ardern embraced responsibility not as pressure, but as an opportunity to uplift millions, showing leadership isn't about having answers but carrying the questions bravely. When Jacinda Ardern took office, she didn't see the role of Prime Minister as a throne to sit on or a spotlight to bask in. She saw it as a responsibility, a sacred, urgent responsibility to serve the people who trusted her, the people who needed her, and the people who didn't even believe in her yet. She didn't treat leadership like a privilege. She treated it like a promise to carry, to listen, to act. And let's be honest, responsibility is heavy. It's uncomfortable. It wakes you up in the middle of the night. It puts pressure on your chest when everyone else is sleeping. But here's the thing, Jacinda didn't flinch. She didn't complain. She didn't say, "Why me?" She said, "Let's get to work." That's what responsibility looks like. Not stress, but service. Not fear, but forward motion. She took the weight of a nation and didn't crumble. She stood taller. Because some people see pressure as a burden. Real leaders see it as a torch. Do you hear me? The torch isn't passed to the one who's perfect. It's passed to the one who's willing, the one who shows up anyway, the one who says, if it has to be someone, let it be me. That's what Jacinda did. And that's what you must be ready to do when life calls you forward. When everyone is looking around, hoping someone else will lead. Be the one who steps in. Not because you have all the answers. You won't. Not because you feel totally ready. You won't. But because responsibility is not about having certainty. It's about having courage. Courage to stand in the gap. Courage to hold the tension. Courage to act even when the outcome isn't guaranteed. And don't confuse responsibility with perfection. Jacinda didn't get everything right, and she didn't pretend to. But she made decisions, she listened, she changed, she owned her role with humility, and that's what made her unforgettable. She wasn't above the people, she was asterisk among asterisk them. When the pandemic hit, she didn't speak from a pedestal, she came live from her living room, hoodie on, baby asleep, calmly explaining what the nation needed to do next. That's what leadership looks like in the 21st century. Not distant, but human, not mechanical, but real. She held the fear of an entire country and gave them clarity. She took the uncertainty and gave them direction. She didn't act like a hero. She acted like a person who knew people were counting on her. And that was enough to push her forward every single day. So when your time comes, and it will, you don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be fearless. You just need to be willing to carry the weight for a while. Because responsibility is not the enemy of peace, it is the path to purpose. You weren't made to watch from the sidelines. You were made to lift the torch, light the way, and hold steady even when the storm comes. Let me know if you'd like to continue with the next expanded key point, F, or see this as a motivational poster series, F. Vulnerability is visibility. She didn't hide her emotions or her humanity. From her first day, Jacinda showed that openness makes you more credible, not less. Her leadership redefined what being strong looks like. From the very beginning, Jacinda Ardern didn't hide who she was. She didn't build walls around her emotions or armor herself in cold detachment. She walked into the global stage with her full humanity on display, and it stunned people. Not because it was weak, but because it was rare. Vulnerability, authenticity, truth. She didn't pretend to have all the answers, and that was her superpower. In a world that often confuses strength with silence, she showed us that speaking from the heart doesn't make you less capable. It makes you magnetic. Do you understand what that means? She proved that being vulnerable doesn't make people question your leadership. It makes them trust it. It makes them feel seen. It makes them feel safe. And that is how real influence is built, not by projecting perfection, but by reflecting back to others that they're not alone. Let's be clear. It takes far more courage to show your emotions than to bury them. It takes strength to say, I'm feeling this too, in the middle of a crisis. Jacinda did it when her country was grieving. She did it when the world was watching. She did it even when the political rulebook said, don't. She wore her heart on her sleeve because she understood something most leaders forget: connection is stronger than control. She didn't just want to look strong. She wanted to be real. And in being real, she gave people permission to breathe, to feel, to follow someone who was brave enough to walk with them, not above them. So listen to me. Stop believing that you need to toughen up to matter. Stop thinking you have to hide your doubts to be respected. You don't need to be bulletproof. You need to be believable. People don't follow you because you're flawless. They follow you because you're honest. They follow you because your truth matches their struggle. That's how you build loyalty. That's how you make impact last. Vulnerability is not a crack in your foundation. It is the foundation. When you let people see the real you, you unlock a kind of power that commands not just attention, but allegiance. Jacinda cried on live television, not because she was broken, but because she was alive to the pain of her people. That's leadership, that's presence. And when she held that space, she created something the world doesn't see enough: emotional clarity. The kind that says, I see your pain, and I won't turn away from it. That moment wasn't weakness, it was legacy in motion. That moment became a mirror for millions of people who'd never seen their pain validated by someone in power. And it hit deep because we don't remember the leaders who shouted the loudest. We remember the ones who made us feel something. Who made us feel human. So if you feel too sensitive, too emotional, too open, good, don't change. Because that rawness in you, that's where trust is built. That's where leadership starts. That's where revolutions quietly begin. In the unfiltered, unshaken space where you are fully seen and fully heard. Let me know if you want the next Key Point Expanded F or a podcast script version F. Legacy begins with intention. The day she became Prime Minister wasn't just about power, it was about service. She didn't wait to be remembered later. She led every moment like her legacy depended on it. The day Jacinda Ardern became Prime Minister, she didn't step into power thinking about legacy in the distant future. She began living it from her very first breath in office. She understood something few people ever do. Legacy isn't built when you leave the room. It's built every moment you're in it. She didn't wait for the perfect moment to start making impact. She didn't delay bold decisions until the polls looked good. She didn't lead to be remembered. She led because it mattered right now. And that is the mindset of someone who understands real leadership. Every word she spoke, every hand she shook, every time she chose principle over popularity, it was intentional. It was purpose in motion. It was a blueprint for anyone who ever doubted whether one voice could change everything. You see, so many people wait. They wait to make their move. They wait to be more experienced. They wait for the approval of others before they step into who they already are. But Jacinda didn't wait. She stepped into leadership like it was borrowed time, like every moment was sacred, like every second had the potential to shape someone's life. And you need to do the same. You need to stop seeing your dreams as someday ideas and start seeing them as asterisk, right now asterisk responsibilities. Stop asking, will this matter in 10 years? And start asking, what if it matters to someone asterisk today asterisk? That's what Jacinda taught us, not with a slogan, but with her life. Because leading with intention means you never treat power like a trophy. You treat it like a tool. And when you do that, when you lead like your decisions echo beyond you, you begin building something unshakable. You don't need to announce that you're making history. History will record it when you live like every action has weight. That's why she didn't waste time pandering. That's why she didn't water down her values. She knew who she was. She knew what mattered, and she refused to compromise that for comfort or convenience. That is what it means to lead with legacy in mind. Not ego, not recognition, but impact that outlives applause. So here's the truth you need to hold close. Your legacy doesn't start the day you retire. It doesn't begin with awards or headlines. It begins the moment you act like your presence asterisk matters asterisk. Right now, in the conversation you're avoiding. In the decision you've been postponing, in the chance to show up when nobody's watching. That's where it lives. That's where it grows. And if Jacinda Ardern could do it in the spotlight of an entire nation, if she could walk into office with a baby on her hip and a fire in her heart and still choose purpose over politics, then so can you. Your legacy isn't a distant dream. It's a living, breathing force inside you. But only if you start living like it counts now. Let me know if you want this adapted into a motivational video script, F, or visualized as a social media carousel, F.